Keeping a character anonymous might seem important to you as a writer, but it makes reading a screenplay and making sense of it very difficult. So what should you do? How's it? Chop, screenplay prep, and the sense of anonymity of a character. So you often have a situation where you don't want to expose who the character is, and you want to keep them anonymous as you introduce them. Perhaps you're writing a thriller, detective story or something, and you're keeping the whole thing as a surprise. Now, ultimately, that surprise is intended for the audience sitting in front of the screen. As far as the screenplay is concerned, it forms partly an instruction sheet to the film crew to get the story made. So the anonymous character can play havoc in understanding what's going on and who to call on set. So here's an example of what we often see and you shouldn't really be doing. You have action description explaining how a character walks in from the background and you have two police detectives in the foreground, and you might describe this shadowy figure as the shadow or man, and that's in uppercase. You then come to dialogue and you write man for the character heading and proceed with dialogue. You guys are taking a long time getting yourselves sorted. The detectives turn round. The man strides up into the light. This is Sheriff Bones, for example. Now, in a quick introduction like that, it's not as grave an issue as if you string the anonymity for a few pages. But essentially, the man stepping out of the shadows is Sheriff Bones. So you should refer to him as Sheriff Bones in your action description, but the audience are not reading your action description, so you're not spoiling it for them. And as far as your character headings concerned, the audience never see your character headings. So don't go with man unless man is just required for an irrelevant character that is going to appear once in a scene. But if it's a significant character that you will be revealing, don't have that complication of man suddenly turning into Sheriff Bones. This character is Sheriff Bones from the start, so make sure all your character headings refer to him accordingly. And as far as anonymity in the revelation of who the person is, as far as the audience finding out, yeah, you can hold that back. If you don't want them to know it's Sheriff Bones, well, make sure in your action description that he's wearing plain clothes and doesn't have a badge that says Sheriff Bones on his chest. Furthermore, the two detectives don't want to be saying something like, "Oh, hey, Sheriff Bones." You want, if this is an anonymous guy, perhaps we don't know he's some famous detective from Europe, you have your detectives in their dialogue asking each other, who's the new guy? There are ways to establish and maintain that anonymity, and it's up to you when you reveal him through ultimately dialogue or visuals with a desk nameplate or a name badge, whatever it's going to be, and you do that when you need to. But as far as action description is concerned, he's not man, he is Sheriff Bones. So keep to that, and the same with the dialogue headings. Furthermore, if you're writing something like a horror story and you've got something that might be like an apparition and it represents Satan or some dark force, be careful about your consistency of how you refer to that character. Have a proper think as to whether, is this the manifestation of Satan, in which case call him Satan or the devil. If it's some weird creature that's just devilish-like, just find an identity, make sure you keep to it, and how you reference that entity in your action description, and ultimately follow through with that as your character heading for its dialogue. You don't want something like the shadow later becoming another name. If something is going through a transformation, that's a different matter. But you must be very careful that you don't lose your filmmakers wondering whether is this shadow creature 30 pages later becoming this greater monster or becoming this human form. You can't have them confused. You've got to be sure that you don't confuse the filmmakers as much as your audience either. I have seen a situation where I had to flip through pages and work both forwards and backwards to work out, is this grisly form morphing into a greater manifestation of Satan, or is this a new character? And then in a third scenario, it morphs into a human. I was lost. So the film crew are going to be very lost. You've got to be sure that you maintain your identity, and if there are transformations, that you carefully handle that in how they are named, and then you perhaps say, Satan becomes the earthly form known as Bob. Clarity and consistency are what's very important in these situations. I hope you found that useful. I'll see you in the next video.